Getting sick makes you stronger. No, it does not. That is a misconception of how the body works. We're gonna break all of this down according to Chinese wisdom, how the defenses work, how everything works. And I hope at the end of the video, you will understand that, oh, wait a second, maybe we should try and be strong and healthy and not rely on diseases to break us down and hurt us and somehow magically not get sick again. Hey everyone, welcome to Ancient Life Hacks. I'm Jared Madsen. I have a master's degree in Chinese medicine. I lived in China for many years. I'm fluent in Chinese. And today we will be talking about immunity according to traditional Chinese medicine. So what we're going to do is go over defensive qi, what that is in the body, what to avoid, what to do to make yourself stronger. And in particular, I want to talk about kids and what they can do. So the system works for anyone. This is just how the human body works. But for kids, children 6 and under, it's a little bit more challenging. And there's certain things that we can do to help them more. Before we dive into that though, I want to break some notions that some of you have. So basically, I have here, getting sick makes you stronger. No. It does not. That is a misconception of how the body works. And everybody goes around saying that. And especially about kids. They're talking about, oh, it's good that kids get sick all the time. Really? I think common sense would tell us no, yet we all kind of just buy into that. Oh yeah, I guess kids should get sick all the time. So where does this notion come from? We're gonna just touch on this real quick because this is an important one that I just see time and again. There's the phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah, what doesn't kill you ends up with you don't have an arm anymore, right? That's kind of nonsense. That's not how it works. Here we have people who get sick all the time. Get sick all the time. They're not stronger because of it. Okay, so I think what the idea is that through certain types of training, and this isn't necessarily talking about getting sick or being physically, this could be mentally healthy or anything like that. Through certain types of training, you can get your body more prepared that if you encounter something challenging, your body can react. So for instance, people often say, well, you know that when you build muscle, you're actually, each time you work out, you're actually getting these micro tears in the muscle and then it builds it back later. Okay, yes, that is how it works. That is much different. So that is training. That is giving yourself a little bit of stress and then it builds back. You give yourself a little bit more stress and then before you know it, you're gonna be stronger because of that. That's not taking knives and stabbing your muscle and then going, okay, grow back stronger than before. That's not how it works, right? Another example would be, here's a more serious example, would be the military, right? So the military, you know, you say, you go to war and then all these people come back with PTSD, right? Did they become stronger because of it? A lot of people did not. But the training before you go is to help you be more able to adapt to those incredibly tough situations, right? That's why we train. That's why we're doing this stuff. We train our body so that when it does get really tough, hopefully we can get through it. So today we're going to go over how we train our body, how the process works for your immunity, for you to have that strength. But sometimes you're just gonna get sick no matter what you do. Sometimes that stuff will happen, but we're going to do everything that we can so that we're prepared for that, so that we can fight that off, so that we don't get sick, we don't get injured, right? Like it's the same, like if you apply that same notion of getting sick makes you stronger, that would be like, it's telling to a military person, yeah, go out and get shot and that's gonna make you stronger. No, you're trying not to get shot, right? So we're trying not to get sick. We're trying to be strong and avoid getting sick and then just being very strong and healthy. All right. Sorry, I got a little excited there. Let's dive into the real stuff. Let's dive into why you're here today. So what we're going to do is we're going to first start with a textbook on Chinese medicine. Now, we are going to dive directly into what is called Wei Qi. or defensive qi. You can understand this as your immunity, your protection, whatever concept wording you like to use. Now, I've done another video about qi in general. So qi, you can translate that to vital energy of the body. I did a whole video. I did like an hour video on it. We just kind of scratched the surface on how it works. So you don't have to watch that before you watch this, but it might give you some insights, or you could watch it after it if you want to get a more comprehensive understanding of how qi works. All right, so we will dive in to defensive qi, and we will first read a quote from the Yellow Emperor's internal classic, translated into English. The human being receives qi from food. This enters the stomach, is transported to the lungs. It is transformed into qi. The refined part becomes nutritive qi. The coarse part becomes defensive qi. Nutritive qi flows in the blood vessels and channels. Defensive qi flows outside the channels. So it's the defensive qi that we're going to be focusing on today. Here is another quote from the same book. Defensive qi is derived from the coarse part of food and water. It is slippery in nature, hence it cannot enter the channels. It therefore circulates under the skin, in between the muscles. It vaporizes in between membranes and diffuses over the chest and abdomen. So I'm going to pause here for just a second. We're going to go over very briefly. Again, I did a whole hour video on this, but we're going to go over very briefly how qi, how this energy of the body is created. So the basic idea is that qi, the character for qi, is a combination of the word for air and the word for rice. So basically, the air that you breathe in, it extracts what's called qing qi, or clear qi. And the food that you eat, it extracts what's called shi qi, or just like food qi. Those two come together, actually in the middle of the chest, and form what is called zong qi. All right, and then that goes through some other processes, and then it ends up with two main types of qi. One is the nutritive qi that we just talked about here, which you could just think of it, that's the nutrition of the body. That's what gives yourself nutrients. And the other is the defensive qi. So the nutritive qi is inside the body. The defensive qi comes really just below the surface of the skin, and even actually on the outside of the skin, on the surface. So it's like just below and above your whole body. It creates it, so it's almost like your body extends a little bit outside to protect yourself from the evil pathogens of the world. So I will briefly talk about the evil pathogens of the world, and then we're going to dive back in to the textbook here to get a better understanding of the defensive qi. So basically, there are 6 types of evil. Things like wind, cold, dampness. These are outside our body, and these are trying to get in. These are the things that then cause illnesses, disease, things like that, according to Chinese medicine. So our job is to make our body strong enough, in particular, for this topic, make our defensive qi as strong as it can be so that it can repel those things. That in a combination with how we live, right? Like wearing proper clothes, getting enough sleep, things like that. Those two together will then give us a strong immunity, right? It will give us strong defensive qi is what it's going to give us. So we are now going to continue. To summarize, nutritive qi is in the interior and nourishes. Defensive qi is on the exterior and protects. The main function of defensive qi is to protect the body from attack of exterior pathogenic factors, such as wind, cold, heat, and damp. In addition, it warms, moistens, and partially nourishes skin and muscles. It adjusts the opening and closing of the pores, and therefore regulates sweating. And it regulates the body temperature chiefly by regulating sweating. So this brings us into another topic. We're going to pause here for a second. It's the pores and sweating. So we now know that there are these evil things outside of us trying to get in. We know that there's this defensive chi that flows just under the skin and on top of the skin that's trying to protect us. So how would these pathogens, how would these evils get into our body? One of the main ways, there's a few ways, but one of the main ways is through the pores. So you think about it, the pores, we have hundreds, if not thousands, however many pores we have on our body. These are like little doors that these pathogens can enter into our body from. Now, generally, our pores are nice and closed and nothing goes in or out. But if we sweat or if for whatever, usually it's with sweating, right? If your pores are going to open, it's usually because you're sweating. When your pores open, the door is open. You have all these little doors open on your body. And then you have the potential for a gust of wind, right? Wind is a pathogen to go in through your pores. And it might bring in some cold with it. It might bring in some dampness, it might bring in some heat. And then you've got that just under your skin, and then it's going to try and go deeper and deeper. So the defensive chi, its job is to regulate those pores, regulate those doors, and also try and, you just think of it like you got little soldiers at each of your pore, and if something comes in, the soldier is going to try and fight that off. But if the soldier isn't strong, or there isn't a soldier for that door, these pathogens can just come right on in the body. To quote the Yellow Emperor's internal classic yet again, defensive chi warms the muscles, fills up the skin, enters the space between skin and muscles, opens the pores. Okay. Being diffused under the skin, defensive chi comes under the control of the lungs. The lungs regulate the circulation of defensive chi to the skin and the opening and closing of the pores. Thus, a weakness of lung chi may lead to the weakness of defensive chi. This can make someone prone to frequent colds. Okay, so a couple things. One, I'm going to pause there for a second. I hope everyone's following along, because this stuff is for understanding how this whole system works and the things that we do to stay healthy. It's very important to understand this. Once you understand this, you can use this knowledge to analyze how you conduct yourself throughout the day. And is this advantageous or disadvantageous to my health, to my defenses? Now, if you go, Jared, this is getting a little too deep for me. I get that. I guess you could just not listen. You could skip ahead and listen to some of the specific things that you can do. But this is like really great wisdom here that you're not going to hear anywhere else. I have not really heard anybody on the internet talking about this. You heard it here first, even though it's thousands of years old. Okay, so to continue. Defensive chi circulates outside the channels in the skin and muscles. These are called the exterior of the body, or also the lung defensive chi portion. The lungs disperse body fluids into the skin and muscles. These fluids mix with defensive chi so that a deficiency of defensive chi may cause spontaneous daytime sweating, because if defensive chi is weak, it fails to hold the fluids in. Okay, we're getting into it now. I'm going to pause and try and break that down for a second. So we talked about how the lungs work in control, in building chi and helping you get chi. The lungs are also the master of the skin, master of the pores. So if you think about it, the lungs have basically this direct connection to the outside. So the lungs, even though they are inside, and they are very much an organ inside, it is an organ that deals directly with the exterior. That is your first thing that connects you to the outside, right? You breathe, and we're breathing constantly. So we're constantly taking the outside, potentially evils and pathogens, or good stuff, good old oxygen and things like that. We're taking that into the lungs. So the lungs are considered the master of the defenses of the body. That is the general of of your defenses. It directly deals with stuff from the outside and also controls the pores. If your lungs are weak, if your lung qi is weak, it will have trouble regulating the doors to the outside, the pores of your body. So again, let's use, I'm just thinking this off the top of my head now, but we were talking about military before. Let's think about that. The lungs are the general, right? And then all these little pores are soldiers and everything. And there's all these little checkpoints along the way. If the general is not giving commands well, right? If the general does not tell the pores what to do, or the general is weak and so maybe he doesn't say anything and they don't know, maybe we should open the door. Like, it's almost like that. And so without strong lungs, without a strong general, your defensive qi is not going to work very well. And sometimes your pores might open, so you might get spontaneous daytime sweating. Now, spontaneous nighttime sweating, sometimes called night sweats, is a different thing. That's a different thing. We're not going to talk about that today. So this is just if you're the kind of person who breaks out into sweat for no reason, right? You're not running. There's not a reason that you should be sweating, and you just start sweating. That probably means that you have a weakness of lung qi, you have a weakness of defensive qi, and therefore you especially need to listen to this video because we got to get that stronger in you. Let's move on. This also explains the rationale in promoting sweating when the body is invaded by exterior wind cold. In these cases, invading wind cold obstructs the circulation of defensive qi in the skin and muscles. Okay, so I'm gonna pause there. I want to continue. I will continue. I want to pause there because I'm worried that we're getting too much into Chinese medicine jargon here. Some of these concepts are not incredibly difficult to understand, but if you don't know the jargon, you might get lost easily. So, wind cold. Basically, in the West, we say, I caught a cold. We call it a cold as well. It's kind of the same thing in Chinese medicine. They usually call it a wind cold. There's these 6 evils, these 6 pathogens that we talked about. Cold is one of them. That's what gives you chills if it enters the body. It usually rides on the back of wind, right? So it's usually your pores have opened, the wind brings the cold in, it enters into your pores that way, and so usually you get what is called a wind cold. Chinese medicine, we call it a wind cold. In English, we just call it a common cold, or you got the sniffles or something like that. That is what wind cold is. So I'm going to read that again, and hopefully it will make a little more sense this time. This also explains the rationale in promoting sweating when the body is invaded by exterior wind cold. Okay, that brought up a second thing. Promoting sweating. Wait, what? I want to promote sweating? Okay, so the pores are these little doors to the body. Now, a door you can go in or you can go out, okay? One thing that we want to prevent is things from the outside coming in. But at the same time, it's a door. So if you've got some intruder in your house, you can kick them out the door, right? And that's what the body does. If this wind cold enters the body, if heat, if dampness, if one of these pathogens or multiple of these pathogens enter the body, it is the defensive qi's job when the qi of the body, when it just enters the body, it hasn't gone deeper yet. It's just entered the body. It's going to try and push that out, just like an invader is, like an intruder is trying to get in your house, and you're trying to push them out the door and then lock the door. That is what sweating is. Sweating is pushing that out, and then once it's out, you stop sweating. You close the door and you lock it so they can't get back in. That is a benefit of sweating. So that's when, if you are getting sniffles, if you are coming down with something, if something has entered, you might start sweating because your defensive qi, your soldiers are trying to get that out of your body. If that happens, what you want to do is you want to get your pajamas on, right? Maybe put a hat on and gloves, I don't know. Get in your bed, get under the covers, and let that sweat happen. What you don't want to do is when your body is trying to expel these pathogens, you don't want to go outside and then get more because the doors are open, right? The pores are open. The doors are open. It's trying to push stuff out, but other stuff can come in at the same time. That'd be like you're trying to push an intruder out, but then more intruders come. So you've got the door open, you're trying to get the bad guy out, and then more bad guys come in. It could end up being worse. You only had one intruder, then all of a sudden you get a bunch more who come in. So if you are coming down with the sniffles and you're starting to sweat a little, the last thing you want to do is go outside. The last thing you want to do is sit in a cold, drafty room, in your shorts or something like that. No. Get your pajamas on, get in bed, let the sweat happen. Now, we'll get into this a little bit later, but another thing is you can be proactive with that. There are herbal formulas. Even if you don't have an herbal formula, have some chicken noodle soup, something like that makes you sweat. And then you have it, and then immediately you get under the covers, you get a good sweat. That might resolve the problem. If you're lucky, that might resolve the problem. That might push the bad guy out. But again, there are no guarantees in life. Sometimes you try to push the bad guy out and he just gets in. We're going to try and not let him get in ever. We don't even want the door open so he can get in. That's what we're trying to do here. All right, let's read that again. Now it should make more sense. This also explains the rationale in promoting sweating when the body is invaded by exterior wind cold. Now we understand what that sentence means. In these cases, invading wind cold obstructs the circulation of defensive qi in the skin and muscles, blocking the pores and impairing the dispersing function of the lungs. Okay, I will explain that. To put it in our intruder way, basically, what you want to be careful of is the intruder. If the intruder comes in, they're going to try and close the door behind them so you can't push them out. And then they can, run around your house and do a bunch of bad stuff. So that's why when you get a wind cold, is that then you actually don't have sweats. And then that's when that's when Chinese herbal formulas come into play, because you got to get sweating, because that means you're coming down with something, but you're not sweating. That means that it has overpowered your soldiers. It has overpowered your defensive qi. The intruder is inside. It has closed the door and locked it because it's on the inside. It's like, okay, it's go time. I'm going to take everything in your house. I'm going to mess everything up, right? Just to go back to what I said at the beginning, getting sick makes you stronger. No, that's the same theory of, if an intruder comes in, locks the door behind him and runs around the house and destroys everything, that'll make my house stronger. I think we're starting to see that theory does not hold up. Okay, so that is why sometimes when you get a cold, then you stop sweating. But what we are going to want to do is to start sweating just at the beginning, but once the intruder gets too deep, then sweating's not going to be able to do it. They're already in your living room. They're in your kitchen. They're up in your bedroom. Doesn't matter if your front door is open or not. They're too far away. They're already inside doing some serious damage to your house. We want to avoid that. By restoring the lung dispersing function and promoting sweating, the pores will be unblocked. The fluids come out as sweat, and mixed with them, the wind cold is expelled. It is therefore said that the defensive qi spreads in the upper burner. Okay, so upper burner just in this case just means the lungs. We don't have to dive into that. Basically, it's the lungs, it's the defensive qi, it's all of that. So basically, again, this is our goal is through this sweating is to push out that wind cold or to push out the cold. That's why it's very important that our lungs are strong, our defensive qi is strong, and that we get the sweating going. This is all crucial to the actual defensive qi getting rid of the pathogens that have just entered the body. However, defensive qi also spreads in the middle and lower burner. Okay, we're getting more into Chinese medicine stuff. So the middle burner is more of your digestion, your spleen, stomach. The lower burner is going to be more of your intestines, that type of thing. It spreads in the middle burner as it originates from food qi produced by stomach and spleen. So we talked about that in the beginning. Just to go over again real briefly, qi is formed. Your post-heavenly qi, the qi that is formed after your birth, is formed from the air you breathe and the food that you eat, right? And then it makes this gathering qi and then makes nutritive qi and defensive qi. The defensive qi is usually on the surface, but sometimes it needs to go through the body as well. You know, just like you would think military generally protects the borders of a country, but then you need the police to protect the inside of the country. If somebody gets into the country, they're supposed to protect it. So that's kind of the idea. The defensive chi is both. It both protects from the outside, but then if something comes actually in, they need to go in and find it. So it's not just on the surface, even though it's predominantly, the defensive chi predominantly is on the surface of your body, but it can also go deeper into the organs. It has to, in case you know, something really bad happens. Some of these evil pathogens enter in. On the other hand, the essence and original chi stored in the kidneys also play a role in the resistance to exterior pathogenic factors, as explained above. So again, we talk a lot about this in the chi video. This gets into some deeper things. Basically, you can think the kidney energy is kind of the essence of your body. It's what is given to you at birth by your parents. So some people they naturally have a stronger constitution. That's from your parent. That's not something you control. It's like roll the dice sometimes for some people. Now, that's a whole other topic that we can talk about, which would be when you want to get pregnant and you want to try to do your best to ensure that your kid is going to have strong chi from both parents, and so that their kidneys will be strong and that they will have good essence. That's a whole other topic. If you want to hear about that, you can let me know about that. But once you're born, that's kind of, you got what you got. You know, there isn't a whole lot you can do about that. There is a lot you can do about the defensive chi, right? So once it goes deeper, then it kind of, you know, it relies on this kidney energy, this deeper energy of the body. Plus two, that is stuff that is kind of like your clock for your body that like for your entire lifespan. Okay, we don't want to tap into that. The more we tap into that, the shorter our life gets, right? So we want to have that run its natural course. We don't, and if we get sick, if we get really sick and it starts really attacking the organs, going deep in the body, and you have to tap into some of that deep energy that you received at birth, that you're gonna pay for that later in life. That is not good. That will not make you stronger. It will make you, that's last ditch effort kind of stuff. We want to avoid that at all costs. We want to live long, healthy, happy lives. We don't want to be tapping into our deep energy just because we were out in the rain and we got a cold that turned into bronchitis that then turned into something else. That's just nonsense. We don't want that. I don't know why you would want that. This is another reason why resistance to exterior pathogenic factors is determined not only by the strength of lung qi, but also by kidney yang. Okay, so we talked about that. So basically, your immunity, your resistance to the bad stuff is predominantly going to be your lungs, that the general, and that creates the defensive chi, the soldiers. But if it gets really bad, then it has to tap into that deep energy in the kidneys to expel, you know, really bad diseases and stuff like that, you know, if you're lucky. If you have a good constitution that can do that. Hopefully these concepts are making sense. And at the end of the day, it's like, stay as healthy as you can and don't do stupid things that are gonna get you sick because, you know, if you don't have strong defensive chi, a little cold can turn into something else. Or you could just directly get something really bad, right? This is Korean Chinese wisdom. This is how you stay healthy. To summarize, so we're gonna wrap up with the book here, and then we're gonna go on to some other specific things that we can do. To summarize, defensive chi has its roots in the lower burner kidneys. It is nourished by the middle burner, the spleen, stomach, your digestive system, and spreads outwards to the upper burner, to your lungs. Okay, I think we understand the process. A deficiency of defensive chi, so a weakness in your army, in your military that protects your body, causes a weakening of the body's defenses against exterior pathogenic factors, and the person will be prone to catching cold frequently. the person will always tend to feel easily cold. So that's an actual feeling of chills, of being cold. And the deficient defensive qi fails to warm the skin and muscles. So that goes into another thing. If you're the kind of person who's always cold, or you have a lot of cold hands, you sometimes shake hands with somebody that have super cold hands, you're like, ooh, that's not good defensive qi. It can be some other stuff as well, but even if it is other stuff, you also have weak defensive qi. But sometimes you'll shake somebody's hands it's like glowing, right? It's like, like the fire and like all this. It's like, wow, that person's defensive qi is off the charts, right? That's what you want. But sometimes too much heat, that's a whole different topic that we can get into it another time. Sometimes people will have a fire, basically a fire in their house. And that would be why their hands are so incredibly hot. But your hands should be nice and warm. Your body should be nice and warm. We are warm-blooded humans. We should be warm. We should not feel cold. We should not easily feel cold. Before we move on to some of that stuff, we're going to get into some cool ancient Chinese stuff I see that it has here. This is kind of cool stuff. Defensive qi circulates 50 times in 24 hours, 25 times in the day and 25 times at night. That's kind of cool. It really is like watch guards, right? It really is soldiers, and they're doing their rounds, and they're making sure that the doors are locked. They're the security, making sure everything is in place. And according to ancient Chinese wisdom, it does that 50 times a day. In the day, it circulates in the exterior of the body, and at night, it circulates in the yin organs. Okay, so basically just in the organs. Why does it do that? Because people are active during the day, so you're out and you're in the environment. And at night, it is assumed at night that you are in bed, you have the covers on, so you are actually creating this defense with your clothes and the covers, and not being out, not having your pores exposed to the outside. That's why you always want to sleep. Even in the summer, you want to sleep with a sheet. You want to at least have something covering your body, because your defensive qi has gone internally, right? It's like, okay, it's night, you're falling asleep. We don't need to pay so much attention to the outside. We're going to do a check on the inside. If something has gone inside, that's when the battle really happens. In the daytime, it circulates on the exterior in the yang superficial channels, from the greater yang to the lesser yang to bright yang channels. I won't explain all that stuff now. If you want to learn about that, let me know in the comments below. We're getting into deeper Chinese medicine stuff here. Okay, so according to the Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic, it is this very flow of defensive qi from the interior towards the exterior, emerging at the inner corner of the eye, that opens the eyes and wakes up in the morning. That's the soldier blowing the bugle in your eye, telling you to wake up. At night, defensive qi flows into the yin organs, first to the kidneys, then to the heart, lung, liver, and spleen. That is the order, the procession that the defensive qi soldiers go into, doing the checks at the body. Each 12-hour period is divided into 25 periods. In the daytime, the defensive qi circulates through the greater yang channels before repeating the circuit for 25 periods. At night, it circulates in the above mentioned order, also for 25 periods. Okay, before we get too crazy deep into this stuff, if you guys want to know more about where that was going, we can talk more about that. But today, we kind of got the idea of how it works. So a quick recap. We breathe air in, we eat food, the energy, the essence of both of those come together, create this thing called gathering qi that breaks off and gives the nutrition to the body, and it creates this defensive qi. The defensive qi predominantly circulates on the exterior of the body that's controlled by the lungs. And especially during the day when we're out and about, when we're active, that is out there, that is trying to protect us. We need to be smart, though. We're going to get into some of this stuff of how we are smart. Then when we go to bed at night, when we put the covers on, these soldiers go, all right, that's it. We're going down into the body and we are checking out the organs. We're making sure that everything works well. And if there's something bad in the organs, the defensive chi will fight it at night. So these are other reasons you can think of as to why, if you're not sick, right, you want to sleep well at night. Now we will get into it. This is why we want to dress well, because the pores, right? The lungs control the pores. So by wearing clothes, especially, for example, windbreakers, all things like that, or even better, you want to stay warm and you don't want the wind to enter into your body. I don't know what else to say. Scarves are good because this is a point that we don't really think about that much. The neck, these pathogens can easily enter the pores that way. You just wear a hat, right? Like, just kind of, yeah. I mean, this isn't rocket science. This should be common knowledge. Like, sometimes you go out and you see people and you're like, what are you thinking? I mean, it's just common sense. Kind of is just common sense. Another thing is, if your house has drafts are a type of wind. So if you have a drafty house, we go inside, we go home, we go inside, and we kind of let our defenses down a little, right? We take our coat off, we maybe, wear things that aren't as protective as what we would wear outside, which, if you have a house that is not drafty, it's nice and warm, it has, but it has good air, that shouldn't be a problem, right? But if you have a house that's drafty, a little bit on the cold side, a little bit on the damp side, right? Dampness is one as well. Those things can enter. They can enter through your pores. So you want to be careful of that. And then the last thing to just be careful of is getting rained on. So some people, walk around in the rain without a raincoat or an umbrella, and it's like, okay, if you have very strong defensive chi, you might be okay with that. But if you don't, you might come down with something. Kind of got no one to blame. Carry an umbrella with you, right? Have a raincoat ready. Don't go out and get rained on. I mean, it should be common sense. This isn't even a cultural thing. This is like, everybody should just kind of know this. Okay, before we get into some of the other things to build defensive chi, I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges for kids. This is the whole reason why this kind of video came to mind, is because when I'm talking about kids, I'm talking about 6 and under. Why do I talk about 6 and under? Because according to Chinese medicine, your digestive system is very weak and not formed, and it gets stronger, it gets formed all the way up until you are about 6. Okay, so if you were to ask, for example, a midwife or a doctor, they're going to tell you that when babies are born, their stomachs are actually flat. Why? Because they've never used their stomach. They get all their nutrition from the umbilical cord, right? And they're in the womb. They're protected. They don't need so much defensive chi. They don't need that. They're just purely kind of growing at that point. And so from when they're born to roughly 6 years old, this is when those defensive systems come into play, especially the digestion. So for instance, when an infant is born, their stomach is flat. It's actually just flat. It's like a nickel. And by taking in some mother's milk, they'll take a little bit at the beginning, and that's just to get that stomach open. And then, over the first couple days, they'll be able to start taking in more and more milk. But the whole system, this is the first time this system has taken in food. Once they start drinking mother's milk, that's the first time that their digestion has had to do anything. So it's like that kind of starts at birth. And as we learned about how chi is formed, the air that is, and also too, they're not breathing in the womb either, right? So the lungs are very tender. So these two systems that form eventually the defensive chi, right? The air that you breathe and the food that you eat, infants did not need to use either of those. They were in the womb. They got everything they needed from the umbilical cord, right? And now they have to start using their lungs that they have never needed to use, and their stomachs and their digestive system, their intestines, all of that they have never needed to use before. So those take a while to get strong. Now you can imagine, since it's already weak and it has to be strong, we need to take extra steps to make sure that our kids are able to eat in ways that fit their digestive system and have nice, good breathing abilities, right? Which would be, a lot of kids get phlegm in the lungs. Yeah, okay, so let's talk about this. So I wasn't going to go this deep, but we're going to talk about this because it's important to understand these things, to understand how this, I will do a whole other video on this. I'm going to talk about it briefly now, but this requires a larger video. So the brief explanation, since we've already gone through a lot today, the brief explanation is if your stomach, if your digestion isn't working well, then there will be stagnation and there can be dampness. Dampness is one of the 6 pathogens. It can turn into phlegm. Phlegm is also one of the 6 pathogens. That can go up and block the lungs. So those two can affect each other, the lungs and the stomach in kids, okay? We want to make sure, so sometimes if kids have phlegm in the lungs, it's actually a digestive problem. Oh, nobody ever thought of that. Yeah, Chinese medicine thought of that. If you hear like this phlegm in the lungs, sometimes when they're born, that, you know, they're trying to expel it. You want to get that expelled, but then if it's coming back, sometimes that is because of a weak digestion. So no matter what, we want our kids to grow up to have strong digestion, strong lungs. The reason kids get colds seemingly frequently, or some kids, I should say, seemingly frequently, is because of that. They either have weak lungs. I mean, they all have weak lungs and weak digestion. That's just how kids are. It's not fully formed yet. It's not their fault, right? It's our fault if we don't really pay attention to that. So it is especially important to kids to really pay attention to, are they out in the cold too much when they shouldn't be, or not in the right way, right? Are they not wearing enough? Are they out in the rain? Are they eating foods that they're not able to digest well? And sometimes just being a little off in one of these things in a kid, someone who's 6 years old or younger, can really have big negative effects on the body, and then not be able to form a strong defensive chi. And then it seems like they just come down with stuff all the time. This is not a good thing, okay? Don't let those people out there fool you and say, yeah, oh, it makes them stronger. No, giving them a good diet, right? Fresh air to breathe, right? Proper sleep, that makes them stronger. Not making your kids get sick all the time and going, that'll make you stronger. That's just simply not true. Even though so many people think it's that way. Okay, we'll dive into breathing quickly because that's pretty straightforward, and then we'll dive into diets. Now, these principles can be applied to everyone, but I would especially pay attention to this for kids 6 and under because they have such a weak digestion and weak lungs. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. So, breathing, generally for kids, it's not a problem. By having kids sleep a lot, which they should sleep a lot, it is easier for them to have a more controlled breathing pattern. So basically, to help kids breathe better, you just let them sleep more, right? They should sleep a lot at night. They should have a nice long nap in the afternoon. If there's problems where they're waking up a lot at night, they can't have good sleep, or they have trouble taking naps, those are issues that you need to resolve because that can certainly negatively affect the breathing, right? When they're asleep, they have a nice solid breathing pattern. When they're up and awake, it's, it can be somewhat sporadic. For us adults, what that means is if you snore or if you have some form of sleep apnea, you definitely want to get that resolved. That is not ideal. That is an obstruction of some kind. To put it in Western medical terms, you might not be getting all the oxygen that you need. To put it in Chinese medicine terms, your lungs you're just stressing the lungs out. You're not getting that qing qi, that clear qi. You're not getting that from the air, and your lungs are not able to extract that. So, and also too, if you don't sleep well and you wake up all the time, it can affect that as well. So sleep is going to be a big thing for the lungs, and obviously if, breathing fresh air, if you're in a place with toxic fumes, I think that's a no-brainer. You don't be there. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about, and this is one of the biggest things for building defensive qi, is going to be our diet. So then you say, okay, Jared, I got it. I've watched to this point. I watched the whole thing. I was fascinated by your explanation, and this is genius stuff. You want to know what it is? And let me say, please like and subscribe. Let's grow this channel. I'm telling you, nobody's talking about, I can't find this stuff online. This is ancient wisdom. Dare I say, this is the most underrated channel on the internet. We got some good, serious stuff. This is fundamental stuff that we need to understand. All of this wisdom from ancient, and it's not even just ancient China, it's ancient cultures all over the world. Today, diet, okay? Defensive qi and diet. So what does that look like? I'm going to give you more of a concept. I'll give you some specific things, but I want to give you more of a concept. The concept is we want to make things as easy to digest as possible, especially if your digestion is weak. If you are 6 years old or under, your digestion is weak. That's just how it is. It's not fully formed. You're still growing. Therefore, you need to eat things that are easy to digest. Well, what is easy to digest? Just think about it for a second. Think about it. Anyone who's seen my stuff before will know. Soups. Yes, bone broth. Okay, so I will explain digestion very briefly. If you've seen this channel, you probably know this already. Your spleen, pancreas is considered, you can think of it as that is the fire, and your stomach is the pot. And you are making a soup. That is how your digestion works. You want to make the soup. You want to get all those things broken down before it then enters into the intestines, and your body can take all the energy, and you can have the nutritive qi and some of that we touched on. Before all of that, you need to break this stuff down in this pot that is your stomach. You just think of that. It's like a pot on a stove. So you want to make sure that the fire is nice and strong, and that everything that goes into the pot is easy to go in. So you've already got the water boiling. If you add more boiled water, right? You add hot water, you add soup that's already been boiling to that, your digestion's not going to skip a beat, right? It'll just keep boiling. If you add raw food, don't get me started, to your digestive system, I mean, the whole thing, right? It's like throwing ice and just raw stuff into your soup. It's going to take a while for it to then, get that going. So basically, to kind of put it in a gross way, soup is like half digested food already. You've already done half the work of the digestion, if not more than half the work. That makes it very easy for the stomach to take those nutrients. So for kids, I mean, soups are great. Soups are bone broth, like any soup, because it's not so much the ingredients themselves, it's that method that they can take things in. So things that are, and then to extend that, not just soups, it can be stews, it can be things that are mushy, right? Like you blend stuff down and then serve it to them warm, not cold. I sometimes see parents give kids raw vegetables. Blows my mind. I think it should blow your mind too. You might be saying, yeah, every kid eat raw vegetables. Yeah, and every kid gets sick. They don't put those together. Their digestive system isn't well formed. It has to go through all these extra steps. If you take those vegetables, boil them in a soup, give the kid the soup, they can virtually immediately take those, and it does very little to tax their weak digestive system. Okay? I see parents give kids cold milk. Oh, I'm not against milk. I think milk is a great thing. Give it to them warm. I mean, even in the West, we used to do that. You always hear about that, like warm cup of milk before bed or warm milk. We stopped doing that. Why? I don't know. I have no idea why. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would drink cold milk. Warm milk tastes better anyway. I mean, now you don't want to give your kids too much dairy though, because too much dairy can cause phlegm and dampness. Okay? But a little bit of milk, that's not too bad. Warm milk, right? I also see parents give their kids fruit juices. Why on earth do you not love your kids? Who in their right mind would give their kids fruit juice? Now, if you've watched this video, you've watched some of my videos, you'll know that's one of the worst things you can do to your kids. Yet everybody does it. Okay, first off, anybody in the know knows that fruit juices, you're basically drinking soda, right? You can say, well, it comes from, let's all just calm down. It's you've taken out all the fibers, all of that stuff. It's just highly sweetened things. It wreaks havoc on your digestive system, right? I've seen a mom who had a sippy cup with ice in it for the kid to, like, do you want your kid to, like, that kid's going to automatically be obese. There's no getting around it. You have destroyed their digestive system before it is even formed. I cannot imagine that kid will grow up being healthy. I do not know where these concepts come from, yet I see it so frequently. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little excited, but I just see it. I see it all the time. And, fruit juice boxes, just one of the worst ideas I've ever seen in my life to give to kids, and yet we do that. And then we wonder why our kids get sick all the time. Ugh. Okay. All right. Anyway, I think you're following the logic. I'm not going to give a whole lot more. We could dive in. I've made other videos on foods to eat. The main idea is that you want to give. Okay, so I will give some specific things for kids though. I'll give you some specific things for kids, and this is great for you too. Traditionally, what a lot of Chinese people will do is they will have congee in the morning, white rice congee. I want to do an entire video on that sometime. White rice congee is one of the most magical things in the world. It is the most simple, magical thing out there. What you might ask yourself, Jared, I don't even know that word, congee. Okay. Porridge, right? All it is it's white rice and water, but it would be probably 2 to 3 times the amount of water that you would usually make rice with. So it turns into more of this soupy kind of thing, as opposed to usually when we eat rice, it's just sticky rice, right? Like it's in a little bowl. It has been boiled in water, but it hasn't been boiled in that much water. But having a nice bowl of white rice porridge, white rice congee in the morning. Again, I'll do a whole video on why this is good. We don't have time for this right now, but that's what my kids eat every morning. That's the first thing that they eat. They don't have a cup of cold milk. I'll tell you that much. They don't have fruit juice. They don't even know what fruit juice is. They do have fruits after a meal. After a meal, they can have some fruits once food has entered their system. But they start the day with white rice congee. It is an amazing thing. I'm telling you, don't do cereal. Don't, just stop all of that, please. I don't even know what to say. I'm begging at this point. This is pathetic. Like, seriously, I just see like the diet that most kids eat, virtually every single thing is actively working against them. All right. So how about this? on the website, we'll give some more stuff. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of the details, right? Like kind of some of the general idea, not the white rice congee, soups, things that are soft, things that are easy to eat. Just think anything that's easy to digest, right? Things that are cold, no, bad. Things that are not cooked, get that raw stuff out of here. Get those raw carrots out of here. I got nothing wrong with carrots. Carrots are great. Boil the carrots, steam the carrots and mush them up. Even better. I mean, when I'm over in the UK, they mash everything. They got like mashy peas, mashy carrots, and they eat that themselves. I think that stuff is great. That's really wonderful. Kids, if they're eating that and that's all they're eating, great for them. Refined sugar. No refined sugar should pass your kids' lips before the age of 6. What about birthday parties? And don't take them. I don't know. I'm a monster. What can I say? Right? Birthday cakes? Get that out of here. Nobody needs to be eating that stuff. Okay, they are pretty good. Okay, sorry, we're getting a little off track. But for kids 6 and under, cookies, get that out. I mean, all that stuff. I don't know. I can't continue. I'm going to put ancientlifehacks.com. Go there. You can sign up for my newsletter. I'll have blog posts. I'll have some specific details. I don't know. Maybe I'll write a book. This needs more than just this podcast. I'm just going to start ranting too much. We don't want to have too much ranting. I will definitely talk about this topic more if you would like to hear, or if not, if you go, you want to know what? I don't care. Fruit juice boxes all the way. Then I give up. Okay, sorry. That got. Okay. Let's reset. All right. So please like and subscribe. I will see any comments you have. Leave those in the comments below. Please check out my website, ancientlifehacks.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Let's really get this thing going. Hey, if you like this content, I don't know why you wouldn't. This content, I mean, you don't like the presentation. I'm sorry if that's the case, but I tell you what, the content is solid. This is thousands of years has proven the test of time. This stuff is good. This is how you stay healthy. I'm going to be putting stuff out that's real solid stuff, and I hope that you can pass this channel on to your friends and family. Follow us wherever you follow people, social media, whatever that is, newsletters, things like that. Sign up for ancientlifehacks.com. All right, I'll see everyone next week.